whatever caffeine you need before we begin.
Are you saying we're going to be sleeping?
No, not at all. I've been misquoted.
All right.
Okay, so many thanks to everybody for being here for this, our second week of our chance to get to meet and to know our elders a little bit better. Last week we heard first from Dan Swanson. He was the sacrificial lamb, went first. Very nice job. And then we got to hear from Gary Gollenberg as well, who decided to schedule it before his surgery. I haven't actually asked him which was more pleasant, the surgery or presenting, but I know it was very pleasant listening to. So, and then this week we're going to get a chance to hear from Bud Williams and from Rob Balancha. Rob is serving this year as our head elder. I did put some of the sheets around again. If you haven't had a chance to take a look, a few months ago, we divided up the whole roster so that every family in the church has an elder who is assigned to helping with their care. That doesn't mean looking over your shoulder. That just means a friendly face and handshake when you get here to ask, how have you been? And to be able to be a little more involved in knowing what's going on in your lives and ways that the church could support you better, that sort of thing. And so as part of that, we split up the list, we've assigned that, the elders are starting to work their way through that contacting, but we also thought it would be great, and last week, if it's the right indication, we were right. It's a great opportunity to be able to have the elders present here, get a chance to know them a little bit better personally, their own spiritual journey, and what they might be wrestling with even to this moment spiritually. And so, with enough from me already today, I'll introduce Bud Williams. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Father's Day to those who are fathers out here today. I really do appreciate that Pastor and the elders wanted to do something like this, because it is kind of tough when you have, you know, a fairly large congregation that you don't always get a chance to stay in touch with, to kind of like put yourself out there so that way people know that you're there and that they can contact you. I guess to start, you know, a little bit of personal information. My name is Robert Lloyd Williams. I've been called Bud all my life. You know, basically, my father, it's an interesting story that I've got it down to like real like short words. So, my father's name was Robert, his father's name was Lloyd, my other grandfather's name was Alfred. He hated Alfred, so he went by Bud. I was the first boy born in either family, so they named me Robert Lloyd but called me Bud all my life. Okay. Now, the reason I can say that 1,000 times and that quickly is every year in school I had to tell that same story, because it would come up Robert Williams, right, with the teachers, and it was always be, Bud, where you get that from? Okay. So I've had to tell that story probably about 1,000 times over my years. But grew up in southern New Jersey, a little town called Leesburg. I was actually born in Millville, if anybody knows southern New Jersey at all. Leesburg and Millville are about a half an hour northwest of Cape May. So when I say South Jersey, I mean South Jersey, right? Farmland, all of that, okay? My mother's name is Barbara. My father's name was Robert. He unfortunately passed away about 30 years ago of rheumatoid arthritis and all the drugs and pills at the time that, you know, that they had to take. Married to Colette, who doesn't like any attention whatsoever, but she is sitting there. You know, we have 3 wonderful children. Lauren, who's 30. Brian, who's 27, and Kevin, who's 24, okay? And I know that they're like 3 years apart for the most part, but then there's certain times of the year that they're not. And that's when I really get thrown off. But our kids are wonderful. You know, one of the things I think that Colette and I tried to do, you know, like through all their lives was to expose them to many different things, be it sports or religion or whatever, and kind of give them, you know, the idea of following their passion, okay? You know, it really is a lot better trying to get up every day, every morning, and, you know, feeling really good about what you're about to do, right? So our daughter Lauren is in marketing for a event service. Brian is a PGA golf teaching professional out in the Chicago area. Lauren lives in Danbury, so she's close. And Kevin is a history teacher at Danbury High School, okay? So they all kind of followed their passion, which was, you know, just kind of a, you know, a wonderful thing, okay? Work-wise, I've been pretty much in the Northeast, you know, all my career. Colette and I went to Susquehanna University in Pennsylvania, which is a Lutheran school, and met there, God, 40 years ago? Yeah, give or take. Yeah. So, 42 years ago, something like that. Anyway, long time ago. You know, I sort of, you know, started to be like wanted to be like a math teacher, football coach. Sports has always been a very big thing in my life. And sort of my junior year, got taken these off-the-wall computer classes, which back then they were like off-the-wall, new, whatever, and sort of kind of fell in love with like computer programming at the time. So my junior year, I kind of made a switch and decided to go kind of into the business world and, you know, worked for Control Data Corporation out of Greenwich, Connecticut, and that's how we ended up in Connecticut, okay? Then went to James River Corporation. That's the basically Brawny paper towels. They're a paper company, or were, okay? And then moved up to Grolier Incorporated here in Danbury, where I worked with Gordon, actually. And, you know, another, you know, media type company, right? The Grolier Encyclopedias and all that. We were purchased by Scholastic Incorporated, which was, you know, another bigger, larger, Clifford the Big Red Dog, you know, education company. What people don't know is the claim to fame was that they basically distributed all the Harry Potter books in the U.S., you know, so, which is pretty cool. And we used to get a book, and my daughter would stay up, you know, at night, the first night that she got it, and then go in and tell all the kids what the story was the next day, which was interesting. So kind of, now I work for Deloitte Consulting, and as probably most people know, I travel quite a bit, okay? Probably 50% of the time these days, I'm traveling, you know, somewhere. So, you know, with Deloitte, again, staying with IT, but we're basically providing cloud managed services, which is being able to host client applications on the cloud. And we sell those types of services to all the Fortune 500 companies. And, you know, like I said, travel quite a bit, which has kind of helped try to simplify my life a little bit. I've always been somebody who likes to be involved, likes to be, you know, involved with different organizations and stuff, but, you know, the work commitment these days has kind of limited that a little bit. Okay. Spiritually, I grew up as a Methodist, okay, and boy did we love to sing, okay. I mean, like, you know, I looked up today when I was about ready to give this, and I see that we had 3 songs up there. We had to sing 6 or 8 songs in a service. Okay, and you know, sort of kind of at the end there with Holy, 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 we would sing those, but they'd be much more fast beat, right? They'd be really up. Anybody else Methodist or yeah, okay. So you know, very much music had a lot to do with, you know, kind of my spiritual beginnings and you know the songs that were there. Also grew up, you know, in those services. They were much more interactive type of services, where, you know, you would stand at certain points in times and give testimony to something that was heavy on your heart that week, or, you know, give testimony that something good happened to you, okay? So, you know, kind of my upbringing, you know, to some degree probably has influenced that I'm much more of an outward type of person, and, you know, my spiritual beginnings probably, you know, gave me more comfort to stand up and say something or, you know, do something, you know, just based on that experience. Sort of how I came to the Lutheran church, per se, is more from Colette and her family. they were Lutherans true and true, right, all your life, down in Tinton Falls, New Jersey, where they grew up. And you know, Colette and I, when we got married and we're thinking about having children, you know, basically said, hey, you know, we really should have kind of one religion, you know, kind of one teaching, and you know, so I went through the classes with, you know, Pastor Wismar, and you know, was here, I guess, a little over 30 years. I'm looking at Linda, 32 years, I think. We've now been a member of the church. I think it was interesting that when we started that search, we started looking around at the various different churches, be it in Danbury or here, because Emmanuel Lutheran is literally like a mile down the road from where we live. We live in Danbury, okay? And you know, at the time we had looked at Emmanuel, though they were on Main Street down in New Jersey, or down in Danbury at that point in time. And we looked in New Fairfield and whatever, but you know, when we came here, there were two things that kind of stood out. One was there were a lot of kids, okay, at the time, okay? A tremendous amount of kids, and when you're thinking about having children and stuff and, you know, kind of getting into that religious family, that's a, you know, real positive. The other thing, which is I think has continued on and continued to grow over the years, and I think Gary mentioned this a little bit in his last week about, you know, just this whole spiritual community, okay? This feeling of, you know, community when you come here, and it's something that you know, I kind of cherish. That, you know, like I said, I'm a big sports person and always have been, and I played football and, you know, did all that stuff. But you know, the whole aspect of being a team is something that has always really interested me. And that's part of the thing, that when you get involved with council or the elders or whatever here, it truly is a team type of environment where everybody kind of respects everyone, everybody has certain skills that they bring to the table, and you know, together you feel like that you can do something and accomplish something. And that's always the kind of feeling that I've gotten, you know, from being here. I think the other thing, you know, that the church has done, and you know, I'm going to put him on the spot, and he doesn't know, but I am anyway. You know, one of the things is I think you're always successful when you have role models, okay? And Gary has been one of my role models for years since I've been here, okay? And I mean, just his kindness to people, I think his, you know, kind of work ethic, you know, when we go to do things here, you know, I always like that kind of like, you know, work hard, play hard type of mentality. Just kind of, you know, the spiritualism that he shows different types of people. That's always been something that I've admired Gary, quite honestly. And, you know, kind of try to drive towards that. I'm more of a, I say this to Colette a lot, you know, like I am not a reader, okay? As a matter of fact, reading sort of just like, I'll read like about half a paragraph and then immediately get turned off when I see something, okay? I think the last book that I ever read cover to cover was the Daniel Boone story in 5th grade. All right, so this new age of, you know, like, to be honest, you know, being on the internet or that type of thing actually works for me, because I just can read clips and I can move on, okay? So I think, you know, one of the things spiritually that I think I need to do is, you know, I'm not as much deeper into the Word of God, okay? I'm a concepts guy, I'm a big picture guy, okay? Generally not into the details. So one of the things that I'd like to do going forward is kind of like, you know, get maybe a little bit more into the understanding behind that, okay? And behind the Word, okay? You know, my life here at the church, like I said, has been you know, blessed, very much so. I've had the fortune to be a trustee, I've been the head trustee, I've been chairman of the congregation twice, okay? Which, you know, again, I like to get involved and do those type of things. I've been an elder, you know, so, you know, I truly believe that that's part of, you know, having that community feeling is for people to all kind of take their skills and what they can do for the church. I think we tried to do a study last year or the year before about how many people in the church are actually involved, okay? and the percentage is extremely high, all right? When you look at, the chancellery or just, being an usher or whatever, and you check the box on people, it's extremely high, okay? And that's why I said I kind of just love the fact of, this being a community and being part of it, okay? A little bit about, one of the things I wanted to ask about church vision or the things that weigh on my mind these days, and not, don't want to get into any political discussions or anything, but what does weigh on my mind pretty much is, kind of a couple things, kind of society-wise, just that, we've lost somewhat the ability of common sense and just being able to work together, okay? That's something that kind of weighs on my mind to some degree, that, I think, this whole community-related thing that we have here and how we can solve problems and resolve, I wish the rest of the world had more of that, okay, all the way. I think the other thing that weighs on my mind a little bit is the fact of kind of like our youth and, kind of where are they headed, okay? I had a very interesting conversation one time with Pastor Wismar about our kids and how at one point in time, and I know I was this way too, right? It was like I was very involved when I was younger in church, and then sort of kind of later years in high school, and then went off to college, kind of like lost my way, right? And sort of wasn't anywhere near strongly involved. But later on in life, when you started thinking about having your own family and children and what does that mean to you, I sort of came back to the church. Okay? I'm kind of hoping that, what we're seeing today with kind of the youth, sort of hopefully patterns at least after that so many of them come back to the church. Okay? And I know we've struggled for years here in trying to, say, hey, how can we keep the youth involved and all of that? And, I think what it really comes down to, and again, this is Bud's opinion, right, is we all have free will, to do with, the tools and the gifts and the things that we've been given. I think you gotta kind of let people have that free will, and I think world experiences, life experiences, those type of things will, bring them back at some point in time. I think that's really all I had. Should I say any questions, or? No? No? Well, thank you very much. I'll turn that over now to Rob. Rob, would you like a formal introduction, or? Before Rob gets up there, one of the things he and I were joking about this past
Getting up here.
But we were joking about this week, Dan and Gary went last week, and I would say, amongst us elders, I think they're more the conservative, although I will say this, even though I grew up in New Jersey, even though I grew up in New Jersey, right, Green Bay Packers, I'm wearing purple, which is the color of Lutherans, right, I like brats and eat and drink and all that other kind of stuff, so even though I grew up maybe differently than the Midwestern guys, I am kind of like a, pseudo-Lutheran, right?
You're local at PGA, are you a golfer?
I am a golfer, yes.
You
Yes.
watch it on Sunday?
I am, and I'm going to be heading home right after this to do nothing but eat and watch the rest of the tournament.
But you'll be up till 10.
The joke real quick is Rob and I got together and said, well, that's kind of like the more conservative arm. We're kind of like more the liberal arm. So more on the out there type of people. So I'll get out of your way.
Thank you, Robert.
All right.
Appreciate that. I have to say I've learned a lot in these couple of sessions with Meet the Elders. Didn't know that Bud was Robert. Didn't know he was a South Jersey guy. I knew that he was probably almost as big a mountain as I am when the occasion strikes, but I echo a lot of the things that have been said already, but I have plenty to say of my own. But I love this place, and this congregation means everything to me. So without getting emotional, which my daughters always make fun of, I want to thank the congregation, and pastor next door, I want to thank him and all the elders, and then of course my wife and family for the opportunity to be a part of this church, and for the opportunity to have taken the journey that I feel like I'm on the beginning stages of as a Lutheran. I was born a Catholic, and I was born to a Catholic family that was kind of your typical, typical Catholic family that I see, which is, you know, going to church for the big holidays, right? That was my family. And then once I got through, you know, communion, confirmation, it was kind of like, okay, it's up to you now. And whatever age that was, I was like, what are you talking about? You're not going to church with me anymore. And of course, at that age, I didn't have a strong faith. I was just kind of being told what to do at that point. So, like many people, and like Robert just spoke to, you know, I didn't have any faith for a long time, you know. People I met, people I dated before Kirsten, they may have been Catholics, but I really wasn't strong in any faith at that point. And I didn't really understand, other than people telling me that I should believe in God, that I should believe in God. And then God started to reach down into my life, and I didn't really know what was going on. But I had moved to, I'm from Scarsdale, New York. I was born in the Bronx. Spent most of my life in Scarsdale. But when I got my first job, which was at Forbes magazine, always been strong in numbers and analytical, and et cetera. So I was a financial analyst, and I wrote a few, you know, columns and stuff down there. But I thought it would be really cool to move to Long Island because I had some friends on Long Island, and live at the beach. That'd be really cool, and probably meet some young ladies, et cetera. And after that became old real fast. I was ready to leave, and then a good friend of mine, and actually his girlfriend at the time, fixed me up, or had a little dinner group where Kirsten was invited, and the best thing that happened to me in my life. So we met, and I said to her, I knew very quickly that she was the one, and I said, look, I like you a lot, I want to keep dating you, but I'm leaving Long Island. I'm going back up to Westchester, and we can continue this relationship long distance. If you're into it, I'm into it. And so we did. And then, you know, because of being proper and all that, she moved to, I was living in New Rochelle, she moved to Larchmont, and we dated for a while there, and then, you know, we decided that it was the real thing, and we got married. And but prior to that, it was important for us, just like Bud said, to figure out what we were going to do about religion. How was that going to, you know, impact our lives? And Kirsten was definitely much more religious than I was at that time. And we started to say, well, why don't we'll go to a Catholic church, we'll go to a Lutheran church. And so we went to, which Catholic church did we go to? We went to IHM, the Catholic church of, you know, where I grew up, and that was in Scarsdale. And when they talk about Mass, they mean Mass. This was a huge church that had, you know, 3 services or on a Sunday, on holidays, and 2, I think, on regular Sundays. It was very large, and there was a school attached to it and all that. And then we went to St. John's, which was not Kirsten's church, but it was a Lutheran church in the area where we were, in the Mamaroneck, Larchmont area. Well, it was a no-brainer. Immediately, I gravitated towards Pastor Marvin Henk, who was married with 2 daughters, and we initially and immediately hit it off, and it was a great place. But yet, I still didn't feel like I had a lot of faith. There were times that it kind of came, but it wasn't something that kind of ruled my life. It wasn't a big influence in my life. And that went on for a while. And I honestly, we moved to Connecticut. We had children, Emma, Alexa, and Catherine sitting in the back. Great blessings for me. And, you know, but I continued to kind of have my sunglasses on and not see things that might have been happening around me the whole time. So we got here after trying a couple of different churches, right? We were in Ridgefield, what other churches did we try? St. James and Southbury. And to be honest with you, and even at the beginning here, we were ready to move on. And then Pastor Rob came. And Emma engaged with him really well. And that was a big influence. So all of a sudden, I was like, okay, we're kind of staying. And then, everything happened with Newtown, etc. But other things started to happen, and my eyes started to open up. And, since everybody's being all mushy and everything, I'll give Gary plenty of accolades too. He kind of pulled me into, going on a mission trip and, and being one of the trustees eventually. And it was a wonderful experience. I mean, it was a game changer. So with Bud, maybe it was sports. With me, it was like, who wants me to use my Sawzall? Because it was amazing. And the pictures in the hallway are still there, and they're great. And we had a great time. We were kicking kitchens down, and it was fabulous. And I have to be perfectly honest with you. Well, so at that point, I still felt like religion, Christ the King, were kind of an obligation and not a blessing. And that's part of my journey that continued for a while. And then all of a sudden things continued to start happening, and I kind of found prayer a lot more. And the more I came to church, the more I felt like I was starting, like the sunglasses were coming off, and I was starting to see things. And I was wondering, are these things coincidences, or are they really, or am I making them up in my mind, etc.? And it wasn't too long ago that one day I was receiving Body and Blood, and I looked up at Ken Fay, and a thought entered my mind. And the thought was, I wonder what it would be like to be giving the sacraments. I wonder what it would be like to be communion assistant. And then the timing might not be perfectly accurate, but I'm not known for my accuracy on telling stories. Gary called me and said, I have a question for you. And I said, is it another trustee thing? Is it another mission trip? What are we doing? Who needs help? I'm the reluctant Lutheran. And he said, do you want to be one of the elders? And then I put two and two together, that how is that a coincidence that days before I was wondering what it was going to be like to be giving the sacraments, and then all of a sudden Gary calls. How is that possible? Ken Fay is leaving, and we need you as an elder. Do you want to be an elder? At that point I was just totally blown away, and I realized that stop fighting this. This is no longer a coincidence. That there are things happening, and if you just open your eyes, you will see amazing things happening around you. So from then, like Bud said, I was a trustee, I was a VP, I've been an elder, and I'm honored to help the elders by being senior elder. And I've been humble all along, because I feel like the more time I spend with this great group of people, the more enriched I am, the more energy I get. And as much as sometimes the world is overwhelming and you wonder, how can I do this? God just gives you this tremendous strength and energy. It's amazing. So if you stop doubting yourself and you just put it in God's hands, I've found out that He does not disappoint. He does not disappoint. So I told you a little bit about my journey from being a Catholic to a Lutheran, and like Bud, Robert, I am the least of the chapter and verse guys on the elders. It's my goal to continue to strengthen that side of it. But I know that God accepts me just the way I am, and that while that is my mission, is to continue to be like Ken Fay and all these great guys out there that can quote all the time, and I'm so blown away by, you know, that level of knowledge. And Dan Swanson being one of those that I'm just incredibly impressed by. And they round out a group. We all bring something a little bit different to the church, and I would say that's true of this whole congregation. We all bring something different to this church, and it is, I can't imagine another place that I would ever want to go to. And now that Pastor Rob's back in here, I'm thankful for our relationship. I'm thankful for Pastor Rob leading this group. I can't imagine ever being a part of any other church that doesn't include Pastor Rob. At some point that day may come, but I'll just turn a blind eye to that for the meantime. He's taught me so much and supported me so much, and I just want to continue to support everybody here. And so, let's talk about a couple other things. They're not as important, but just to round out the knowledge base. You know, what do I do for a living? Well, Bud travels 50% of the time. I travel 50% of the day. I work in New York City. I'm in marketing. Specifically, I trade media. I buy lots of digital advertising that you guys probably see for a variety of probably tens of, if not more than tens of brands. I work down near Columbus Circle. I do that every day. I'm blessed to do that every day. I look at it like there are so many people that do things for a living that hate what they do, and they could do it right around the corner. And I was one of those guys. I worked in Bethel, you know, and commuted from Southbury to Bethel, and pretty much hated it the whole time. I've been in Westchester. I've worked for digital startups. I worked all the way down on Hudson and Houston. Then my father got sick with cancer, and God bless him, he's 93 on Flag Day 2 days ago. Beating the odds, and never heard that man speak more about God than when he came out the other side of all his operations. I was like, praying for who, what? God? How's that coming out of your house? He used to be the same man that said, we invited him to go to church one time, and he said, what do you want, the roof to fall down on me? Okay, so this is the same guy. And now all of a sudden he comes out the other side, sees his family and the faith that surround us and surrounds him, and now he prays for everybody. So that's an amazing story. But I'm blessed to be working in the city and being able to, you know, be able to do what I like to do. I don't know if I'm going to be doing it for more than another decade, if that. But, you know, and my challenge, you know, we had a list of kind of questions and a template that we were looking at. And, you know, daily I'm challenged no matter what your politics, what your feelings, and I think Bud put it really well. There's a lack of middle ground, common sense, and conversation going on in this world, and I am in the heart of it. You know, New York City is, and in advertising in New York City, is a challenge on a daily basis to, you know, to be able to just be like a normal